So one of the things that you're going to be, and possibly one of the reasons that you're even looking at Bitcoin even moderately seriously, is that you've come to an understanding that inflation is a big deal, which, since 2020, if you're not feeling the effects of inflation, then you probably don't even need to watch this video. But I have really changed my approach in talking to clients and friends and family about Bitcoin. I used to do the orange pilling method, where you would just talk about how awesome Bitcoin is, number go up, its track record over the past 16 years and all of that. And there's definitely a time and a place for that. But what I have found over the years is that if you don't really truly understand the problem that assets like Bitcoin and gold and silver solves, you don't understand the problem that they solve, it doesn't make any sense to you. And so where I usually start when I'm talking to a client about Bitcoin is I'll just start asking questions like, hey, what are your thoughts about inflation? How's inflation, affecting you? And really just trying to get a feel for, what they understand, their understanding of inflation. Most people, the middle class, I would say, understands price inflation, which really is actually a secondary effect of monetary inflation. So it's amazing because, when I first got into Bitcoin, more than a decade ago, things like, fiat, terms like fiat currency and monetary inflation and currency debasement and all of those things were not really yet part of like the normal standard American or Western vernacular. And now, man, you can turn on, the normie CNBC financial news and everybody's talking about the debasement trade. Everybody's talking about these terms. So the thing that I find is that, if you're new to Bitcoin, if you're you've been sitting on the fence about it and you're not sure, I think that's a great place to start. One of the books that I recommend to all of my clients is The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. That is a fantastic primer, because what he's really doing in that book, he doesn't even start talking about Bitcoin until I think chapter 9. But what he does is he explains the monetary system. The history of money is basically what the first 9 chapters are. And that may sound like a big snoozer to you, but I promise you that it's not. It's actually a really, really fascinating take on the history of money from an economist's standpoint. And I think it's really important to understand that. In order for you to really give a rip about and start to understand what Bitcoin really truly is. And I would also say gold, although I think it's a far inferior technology and a far inferior platform compared to Bitcoin, especially for the 21st century. But you have to have that basic understanding in order to really have the motivation, I think, to, want to understand Bitcoin. So I think digging into monetary inflation, if you guys have questions about that, the difference between monetary inflation and price inflation, I love talking about that stuff. I'm trying to sort of redevelop my vocabulary and talking to you guys and kind of putting our heads together to try to bridge that gap between, traditional personal finance and Bitcoin, and build Bitcoin into, our daily thought process, our daily lives, and ultimately our daily financial interactions.